Right, welcome back to another episode of Mac Trains and another interview with Simon Kohler. We're very thankful to Simon for making the time to be available. It's quite hard to believe. It's actually very nearly a year ago since we had our first interview. It was in February 2023. And at that time, I think I was so staggered that you agreed to be interviewed, I almost forgot to press record. So we are recording now. Hopefully this will work. We're new year, new perspectives, new updates, plenty of news in the hobby to get on with. And I thought perhaps this time we could be a little bit more reflective. Clearly, you're not directly involved in the harum scarum of manufacturing with Hornby anymore, but no doubt you still have your connections, your personal interest, and your knowledge of the underlying state of things. And it's that underlying state of things that I want to begin with. We've had the shocks recently, I suppose. Closure of Hattons, didn't see that coming. The halting of Warley. And combined, these things have generated quite a lot of negative press for the hobby. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, the model railway world has had a couple of shocks these last couple of weeks or so. But I mean, nothing ever stays the same. Things will always change, and I am sort of witness to all that, if you like. If you had two what I would call icons, if you like, of this great hobby of ours, basically calling time. But of course, they're two individual setups, really. I mean, you have a retailer, an established retailer, Hattons, and I think they put on their website the reasons why they're shutting shop. I think it's a brave decision. I think it's a decision that quite easily you could avoid, and it could have been avoided, and he could have just stuck his head in the sand and said, yes, it will get better. I think with making the decision he has, he's looking forward for the rest of his life and his future and how he will plan it out. I personally think that although Hattons may finish, you will not see the end of Mr. Davis at all. I think he will probably re-emerge stronger and probably wiser now. As I say, things have changed. The world has changed. I can't speak for him in his business, but what I do know is that there was a reasonable amount of business done in Australia, and with the new regulations that the Australian government have brought in and the postal services, etc. And Hornby fell foul of that, certainly with Brexit and all the rest of it, with trying to ship what we classed as the club locomotives to Australia. It became a nightmare because the customs people were wanting to charge the recipients VAT and goodness knows what else. So that was one of the reasons why Hornby stopped sending out the free locos, because it just became too much of an issue. We couldn't even send them these locos to the Isle of Man. Anything on the mainland was fine. Anything on the Isle of Man became an absolute torture. It was a nightmare. So sadly, had to draw a line underneath that. With regards to Warley, again, it's down. What you have with Warley, you have a really vibrant, exciting club, and it does attract members. Now, the show is a massive show. I don't have to tell anybody that, but with it becomes a massive responsibility. The organization of that show goes on for probably well over a year.
Yeah.
And you need to have people to dedicate time. It's not something you can just do 5 minutes of in an evening. It takes time. And the people who had the time were arguably those who had retired or whatever, whether they had early retirement or just normal retirees. And they were doing the main organisation, as I see it. The youngsters got families, commitments, etc., just didn't have the time. And I think it's come to a point where these guys who have been doing it for a good number of years have said, can't do it anymore. I'm getting old, and I'm not so fit as I have been, and we just have to draw a line. Now, I think again, it's one of those brave decisions where they could have, if you like, lumbered on.
Yeah.
And what you would have had would be a show that would start to probably disintegrate and become, well, it wasn't a very good show, was it? I mean, they finished on a high. I mean, the Warley show this year was, if you like, last year was brilliant. I thought it was very good, very exciting, lots going on. Who's to say what will happen in the future? We know that Key Publishing have got a hobby show coming out in April at the NEC, which will involve not just railways but kits and etc. And you could find that other people, other interested parties may think, well, October, November is a good time for shows. Maybe we could take up the Warley show again and call it something else. But, things change. Nothing ever continues. And as I say, with model railways, I've always said, they like continuity. Enthusiasts like continuity, I suppose, like we all do. Nobody likes change, but change happens. And out of change can obviously come bigger, better, and probably stronger things.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I think
that's how I see it. That's how I see it.
All right, I agree. I think that for Hattons there, to see it not a business that is going to be in a state of failure for a long time, but rather someone looking ahead, assessing his business and acting on behalf on that. I was more perhaps surprised that he didn't try to offload the business and sell the business as a going concern, that someone might have stepped into it. But obviously he felt that also wasn't viable and it was better to do what they're doing. And Warley as well.
Yeah, I mean, Richard's a shrewd guy. And as I say, I think there comes a time when you think, whoa, hang on a minute, I've just drawn a line and it's not going up, it's actually going down. So I think I best make a decision now. Now, I don't know, as I say, I can only go by what was on the Hattons website. But as I say, Richard's quite shrewd, very shrewd. And I think he knows what he's doing. And as I say, I don't think you'll see the end of Richard. I think, he will pop up with probably something different, probably a little bit more revolutionary, left field stuff, something that will probably arguably set the trend on how people buy their model railways going forward.
Yeah.
Who's to say? I honestly don't know.
No, that would be great. I think to see something come out of it, and it's okay. That's gone, but this is in its place. I think that would be an encouraging book. So you don't think that these two things are of themselves indicative of an overall kind of
overall,
it's more there were circumstances in each case and explain each case, and generally the hobby is quite vibrant.
I think when you consider, I think the hobby's changing, and I think people's buying habits are changing, and I think that makes a difference. You've got more and more, you've got companies coming in, manufacturing companies coming in, who more and more of them are, if you like, initially selling direct to the trade, to the consumer, and offering, they'll have some trade customers, but more and more are selling direct. They're not settling on a new model of just doing 3 variations. They're doing a dozen or more, which when I see it, scares the living daylights out of me, because I just wonder where are they all going to go. I can understand why it's being done, because I'm assume anyway, is to get the tooling money back as quickly as possible, because they're young companies and they need to As I say, get their payback as quickly as possible. And you can do that by pushing out as much product as you can, or much variations. What it does do, in my humble opinion, is that it reduces the number of items over a given period, and also reduces the longevity of a product. For example, when I was at Hornby, we'd do a new tool of a loco and produce maybe 3 variants, and then the following year another 2 variants, and etc.
That tooling can be used.
Yes, exactly. And nowadays, as I say, we'll do them all at once. So there may be 200 of one, 300, more popular, we'll have 500 of that. So, they get the payback very quickly, but, in some respects, they're here today, gone tomorrow. And that, whether people in this day and age have that sort of amount of money available, they may have a passion for a particular type of loco and really would like to collect, out of that dozen, 4 or 5 of them. Well, if they're £200 a pop in a year, that's quite a bit of money you've got to find. It's almost a pension.
Yes.
Really.
I'll look down the back of the sofa after this and see.
Well, it's a bit like that. I've often said, for £200 you can have a really good meal. The thing is, the next day you're hungry. For £200 I've still got my model the next day, the day after, and the day after.
Yeah.
So, but no, the world is changing. People's buying habits are changing. Manufacturing is changing. It is a changing industry.
In relation to that, then, are the big players, your Hornbys and your Bachmans, are they nimble enough to take advantage of that just now? Or are they so fixed in how they've always done things that is actually going to get them into trouble?
I think it's a little bit more than that. No, you have. I think this day and age, you do have to be fleet of foot, and I think some of the larger companies will probably be aware of that and become more, a little bit more nimble. I mean, if you look at, say, companies like Bachman, their policy is, every quarter make an announcement, and they're pretty confident that in the following few months, the product they announce will be in the shops.
Yeah,
which is, I think, a good step forward. And admittedly, when I was at Hornby, that was my aim. Circumstances, unfortunately, with COVID and the delays caused, etc., by that and other things, stopped that sort of ambition I had. But I think Bachman's approach is good.
Where Hornby are going more with their 2024 range launch. It was limited, and they did say they intend to do more launches, if you like, announcements as the year goes on. So they seem to be moving in a similar Bachman-esque direction as far as that goes, which makes sense, I think, just now.
Yeah, I don't. I think if you look at what Hornby have got coming through, which had been announced a year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years. Yeah, 3 years. It's all very exciting. And again, you have to take into account what the market can actually absorb. Really, what you don't want is, and I have to say this is what's scaring me a little bit at the moment, is saturation. And I think 1 or 2 other people are sort of picking up on this. The amount of product that's being announced and coming through is reaching a level where you think, is this too much coming through? Now, what Hornby have got coming through is, I would say this, is absolutely brilliant. It's great. I mean, it's fantastic, and it warms my heart to see it coming through.
I think even the Locomotive 1 prototype.
Yeah,
And that was
yeah.
a blow away moment, and that looks astonishing. And I,
When
I
when I
imagine that at
suggested that to the
TT120. That would be a
designer,
whole different
oh,
thing.
sorry, go on.
Sorry, imagine that at
Well,
TT120.
well, I mean, I saw I saw Carl Hart, the development manager for Hornby. His blood did drain from his eyes when I suggested that for TT. Wouldn't it be great if we had a rocket and with sound and smoke?
Yes,
Uh, which nearly sent him into apoplexy.
yeah.
But when I suggested Locomotion One, because it's Era One, I think is a relatively untapped market. I'm not saying it's a massive market, but there's certainly an interest there. And I suggested Locomotion One, which incidentally I actually have. I think it must be a no gauge Huta version, which was given to me by Graham Hubbard of Bachmann to celebrate. I've forgotten 50 years or something, or 100 years, 200 years of Bachmann, whatever. But I always thought that would be a really good model. And of course, with the focusing on Era One or looking at Era One, Locomotion was number one, was the one that I thought would be really good. Yeah, I used to see it when I was working with the Science Museum. I used to see it up at Shildon. It used to be on a pedestal there, in one of their meeting rooms. And I thought, it's fabulous. I suggested it, and the designer, I won't mention his name because he doesn't want his name mentioned, but he was scratching his head how he was going to make everything move up and down and round and work. And I know whether you've seen the video that was posted by Carl. He's got it right. It looks absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I think
Fabulous. I mean, that's if you could put that in your CV, you open it and that's you say, I can't do better than that. That is perfect, superb engineering design. Yeah, very pleased to see.
It was very exciting to see that, and that was definitely the highlight and the standout of the range launch for myself. Looking at that,
yeah, cool.
And these are things that get people excited, because that's, like you say, that's not, a new class 37 comes out. Well, I've probably got a class 37, and it might be newer, and it might be better. It might have this feature that. But I've got one. I quite like the one I've got. I'm attached to it. It's nostalgic, whatever it might be. This is something, no one has one of these. So everyone's looking at going, okay, can I justify it? Now, the answer might be no for a lot of people, but everyone is at least asking the question, I think, who has 00 at all. Can I justify getting one of these? Because that looks special. And that's what you want.
Yes, it is. And it's something that, it probably has that little bit of big boy factor.
Yes.
I don't model America.
Yeah.
But I've got to have one of those. They're so stunning, and you do look at the number one, you see it running, you think, you've got to have something. I've got to have that. Even if I just put it on the shelf, it looks so good.
Yeah.
And it will look really good. And you touched on something about class 37s, etc. One thing that Locomotion does, as I touched on it again, was it's an era that's not been looked at. So hopefully sort of expanding a market. And I think where Hornby scores, it's got such a broad church.
Yeah.
And apart from Hornby and Bachmann with Thomas, what are other model railway brands doing to bring people into the hobby?
Yes.
Is it producing another class 37, or is it producing something like play trains or whatever's going to replace play trains, bringing youngsters into the hobby, which will hopefully, like it used to, feed through? They'll have a gap where it's motorbikes and girlfriends,
well, then they come back,
and then we go back to it. So I mean, this is really what concerns me. It's all very well having all these wonderfully new singing, all dancing, flashing lights, cab lights that switch on and off, dial lights, no doubt, and probably the sizzling of bacon and all the rest of it. It's really great.
Yeah.
But what's that doing? Bringing new people into the hobby, and I think that's what we should be looking at, because we don't bring more people in, or at least stop them off. It will become an old-fashioned hobby that will eventually peter out. And as I sometimes think that at the end of the day, the only people who will be doing any kind of modeling will be those who are well-heeled, because it's becoming too expensive.
Yeah.
And I think, again, I know, I don't work for Hornby anymore, but this is where railroad comes in. It's that, and it always was intended to be that step up from a train set, railroad, then the super duper stuff.
Yeah.
You can't go from a train set to railroad to the top end straight away.
Yeah.
So the thing with railroad, when originally the concept I put forward, and we, and started produce, I stipulated that it needed all the pickups, it needed decent motors. You can cut back on the detail, that's fine.
Yeah.
Running characteristics has to be just as good as the models that was selling at that time for £100.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You don't, when I first went to Hornby, I think I have mentioned this occasionally. When I first went to Hornby, walking around the factory, I saw a lady there, because every loco was tested, and she was testing these little 040 locos around an oval of track which had a point in.
Yeah.
And she was using an old 900 transformer controller that Hornby had. And it was belching round so fast, and then she would hit the reverse button, didn't slow it down, just hit the reverse button, so it did the wheel spin and shot round again. I said, well, no, hang on, why aren't you running it a lot slower so it can, you can see it? And she said, well, it'll stop on the points. And that always stuck with me. It cannot stop on the points.
Yeah.
Dirty track's a different story.
Yeah,
it has to move over the points, and that's what I wanted. Definitely, where rail was concerned, can't cut back on pickups, etc. Do by all means on a bit of livery that's not necessary.
Yeah,
and of course the natural progression from doing railroad was railroad plus, where we started adding, nameplates and things like that. But that's evolution of a brand.
Yeah.
So. Sorry, I'm slightly off piece there.
No, I think we all both went off. That's fine. I think that's the point of the discussion, that we things that are still that wouldn't have been in my list of prepared questions to ask, and yet I think that's definitely useful to bring in. So no, that's grand. I put out a wee thing onto the channel a couple of days ago saying Simon's agreed to do this. Any comments? And a few comments back. It's a small channel, but. At Highfell asks for some snippets from his upcoming book, would be very interesting to hear. I don't know if you're in a position to be able to oblige with that or not, Simon.
Well, I can tell you that it's with an editor at the moment, who's going through it. I hadn't. He obviously has other things to do, and I hadn't heard from him. And then he, out of the blue, said he was virtually all the way through it. And found it interesting, which was great. I mean, you hear that, because you read it through and you read it through again, and you make changes, and you think, is this boring? Are people really interested in this? But he felt it was interesting. I mean, and it's a very simple book, basically saying, and I stress, it's not all about me. But it was how TT, I always felt TT was a great scale, and how, I stumbled across it, the first couple of days I worked in the model shop back in 1971, and how it all stayed with me. And then how, it got launched through Hornby, and the reasons why it got launched, and the way it was launched, and what the plans were, etc. So really it takes you through the beginning, the middle, where they are at the moment, and probably a bit of a projection of where it's going.
Sure.
So that's in simple terms. It will answer certain questions that people have asked over time, and give explanations as to why. I think that's and as I said, nothing controversial. It just shows how products, or certainly a new scale, or a new scale for Hornby anyway, had evolved, and how it was developed. And there was an awful lot of, and so many people involved, and passion for it to be right.
Yeah.
Some of the hiccups that cropped up. And that's the other thing, why is that bit of track there? And so there's a little bit of an explanation on that.
Very good.
So yeah, it's
we'll look forward to it. I think, will it be available as an ebook as well, given your own penchant for reading on your phone, or will it be purely?
Well, I will, because you don't do these things for any kind of financial reward. It will go where anybody wants it. Available as an ebook would be great.
Yeah.
Probably, as I was saying earlier before we started recording, probably start at 99 pence, and when it gets to the interesting bit, turn it up to £2.99. So yeah,
I'll watch out for any dirty tricks campaigns. Very good.
All right.
So I've got two related comments here. I don't think you're welcome to respond to them if you want, but I'll just give them to you as a name. At Peachy TT120 had a great channel. He's put a lot of work into it, and
yes,
it's been great to see. He's a cheery champion. He's ask him when his non-disclosure agreement finishes, with a smiley face at the end of it.
I am an admirer of Peachy 120 and what he does, and I have a moral obligation to keep that sort of thing to myself for as long as I deem it necessary. Things will, it will evolve. He is aware, as most people are, what the plans were. Obviously, plans will always change, and the range will evolve. But it's fairly consistent with the way I left it back in the end of last May.
Yeah.
So it's evolving. Manufacturing is always going to be a bit of an issue, bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
Really.
And again, even deliveries now with the shipping issues of getting through the Suez Canal with the danger in that area. These things all have knock-ons, of course. So yeah.
They do.
Sorry.
No, you go on.
No, I say at Highfell, it comes back to say, I'm off to a bet on when Mr. Hornby walks back through the doors. And again, I don't know if you. So.
Yeah. I think there may be a few people who might have an opposite view, actually. So, yeah, I'm not sure the current Mrs. Kohler would be too happy, because as quiet as I tried to be, when I left home about 5 o'clock in the morning, it would either disturb the dogs and therefore disturb her as well. So, I think she's got used to me being around the home.
Coming to, I suppose, TT120 more directly, and you've touched on this already. The rollout, is it about where you expected things to be at this stage? Is it sort of, you feel it's generally on track?
Well, actually, funnily enough, I wrote answer to an email I received. The original plan I always wanted was that something new would come out on TT every 6 months.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think it's quite hit that, but I think with the 66s coming through, the 50, the Duchess, which is towards the end of this year, I think, other bits and pieces, I think it won't be far off, on that sort of catch-up mode. Things that say, those TTA wagons are superb. They've been really well received.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's getting that way. I'm always impatient. I was impatient, with the launch and everything. And I want as much out, I wanted rather, as much out in TT as possible, as early as possible, to get the scale, the 120 established as quickly as possible, because I'm obviously aware that where 00 is concerned, it's got virtually 100 years worth of development and models out there. Engage, not quite so many years, but it's got a lot out there. And I think it's important that, you know, you can have new product coming through, or you can see new product coming through. And it's not just from Hornby. There are others, companies with buildings, accessories and things that all add to creating quite a nice layout. I mean, one of the things, and I do cover this off in the book, you know, you're always going to have regrets or think, well, maybe I should have done it that way. And one of them was, maybe I should have had an 060 steam loco out sooner rather than later. That's if one is actually going to be released, he hastens to add. But maybe, you know, my original plan did actually have a Ginty in it, but that was going back to whatever it was, the 90s, early 2000s, I think it was. So that plan changed, and maybe that, and I admit in the book that was probably a mistake. Really focusing too much on a diesel shunter, not realizing at the time that the diesel shunter, from its actual makeup, etc., would turn out to be reasonably expensive, really. Because it's an expensive model to make, as it is in the 00 version. So perhaps I should have tweaked then. But there you go. I mean, I'm sure, you know, these things will catch up.
I mean, I've got the wee 08,
and
it's a lovely wee model. I think, I suppose you're looking, and there's obviously a period of discrepancy between the different developments that were happening at the time in terms of some of the HM 7000 stuff and not getting the 6-pin out yet, I think. I would imagine, at least, that going forward, new releases will have that level of design earlier in the stage, so that they are more instantly compatible with these things as they come out.
Correct. That is correct. I mean, the development of TT started before the HM 7000. You know, probably a good year or so before the HM 7000. The original plan was to actually launch TT 120 and the 7000 together. But the 7000 wasn't available and wasn't going to be available for some time. Hence, with the original TT announcement, there was no HM 7000. And then at the beginning of the year 23, all of a sudden you had HM 7000 fitted locos coming in to the range. Planned.
In that regard, I always wondered, was the HM 6000, was it almost like a testing mule for HM 7000? Was the goal HM 7000, but you thought you'd do this as its own thing? Yeah,
I mean, I suppose it was all thought of roughly around about the same time, using Bluetooth, settling it on DC, doing DC, and then seamless to go to 7000, because, you know, it's still Bluetooth. So you can use your accessory modules, whatever you want to call them, for the 6000. You can use exactly the same for the 7000. So the idea was, you know, I'm running my locos on DC, use the 6000. However, I fancy getting my, you know, toe in the water with this DCC. So I can, if I just spend 30 odd pounds on a decoder, put it into a loco, the program is downloadable free. It's still on my mobile phone or my iPad or whatever. And I can see if I like it, you know, £35. Cheap way of testing the market. And if I don't like it, I know somebody would buy that decoder
Yes.
off me. So
For
it
29
was
pounds.
yeah, I mean it was just you know, you could look at it the other way. It was a sprat to catch a mackerel. You know, this is yeah, I like this. And I only have to buy a decoder. Even the sounds are free.
Yeah.
I mean, what's free
Yeah.
apart from air? And that's suspect at times. So you've got that, and also the ability that it isn't just a one-time downloadable sound file. You know, yeah, I've got it in a 37. I'm going to have it in a 9F, so I can use the same decoder. I've gone Steam now, and I can download a 9F sound. So that was the strength of it, and the fact that it was Bluetooth and Bluetooth. The really, you know, from the development, as I've said earlier, I think somewhere that 01, you know, not a lot apart from a few bells and whistles had actually happened with DCC, and I thought there had to be coming up a big sea change, and really sending a signal down a track which has brakes in, which has dirt in, through track loco wheels which probably have dirt on, through dirty pickups, into a motor which has had these components soldered in, which again could have dodgy solder joints, has to be possibly one of the most inefficient ways of sending a signal. Sending it through the air, Bluetooth, nothing's going to affect it. You know, and I think that was the really a couple of the strong selling points. The fact that it was free, it was through the air. You know, I don't have to be an electronic wizard. And you know, and it's designed to be, and will evolve, but it is designed to be fairly straightforward for a novice. But I know with what Bluetooth is, it will evolve.
Yeah.
And there'll be lots more to accompany it. I think it's an exciting system.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant. I mean, I did dip my toe in the world of the HM 6000 when it came out, first of all, and I thought it had a lot of potential, a lot of flexibility in it. Got myself at that point a 6010, which I operate a small 00 shunting layout. But now I have just migrated the 6010 across into the TT fiddle yard to operate the points on there through the HM 7000 system, and does all I need to do. I've got six switches in the fiddle yard, but two of them are back to back, so they switch together. So I only need the 4 outputs, so it works, and it has enough power to do that. And so I think a lot of flexibility in the system, and I know others have. I found it reliable, I have to say. Thankful for that.
And I think the other benefit of the 7000 system Bluetooth is I can if I'm already established DCC in the conventional way with my Elite selector, whatever, I can actually have a Bluetooth loco as well. You know, the addition of this dongle, I can control all my locos, whether they're fitted with conventional decoders or Bluetooth. I can control them all on my iPad or on my Elite or Select. And I think again, it's such a clever system, meant to be as universal as possible, really, without having to scrap everything and start again. I think it's you know, really good. I wish I'd thought of it.
Excellent. What about we've seen a lot of retailers come on stream with TT120, and I know at the start that was a point of the naysayers at the start. Now I think this wouldn't come under any model self-imposed NDA. Was that always the plan, or was that a wait and see thing?
No, probably a bit of both. I've covered this off really in the book. Mr. Retailer, I have it's on record, I have a huge amount of respect, and I really genuinely do. But when something as different comes on to the market in the railway field, they're not always on board with it straight away.
Sure.
So I did do my original plans, have taking into account, we'll open it up to all the retailers. We'll have to have all this point of sale. We'll have to have this, a huge amount of persuasion, window displays, and all this. And of course, that sort of budget sort of gets quite colossal.
Yes.
And then before all that happens, you've got to have people going in and talking to these guys and probably spending a couple of hours or more trying to persuade them that, TT120 is what it's all about. But, when they really say, well, how do you know?
Yeah.
Well, to be fair to the salesman, he doesn't know. He has a gut feeling, as I had a gut feeling, but he doesn't know. So some would probably say, well, having spent 2 or 3 hours trying to persuade him, probably say, well, just send me a set and a couple of locos, we'll call it quits. Well, that's neither here nor there, because that's piecemeal.
Yeah.
What you had to do was establish it, show that there is a market, and then go to Mr. Retailer, and not all of them, to a select few. And and this was something picked up from our distributor in Australia. Go to a select few, who then become TT120 main stockists, and they would carry everything. They would carry not in huge numbers, but if you've got 120 and you want a straight, etc., you want to know that you're going to go to that shop and they will have that straight, or want a train set or whatever, so they would have it. They're certainly like gold dealers, if you like. How it's progressed now, where it's been opened up, that's very encouraging, and it's opened up now to everybody, every retailer, and they will take it. I'm sure some will say no, others will say yes. But when I was establishing some of these gold dealers, if you like, there was probably only a couple who were slightly not sure. Others bit my hand off.
Yeah.
But I could prove to them that
it was
in the months prelude, we had established a market.
Yeah.
Because we'd sold out of sets, we'd sold out of this.
I think everything has come in so far. You're seeing it almost go out the door almost as fast as come in, which has been great. And the difficulty for Hornby has been to keep up with that, which is again not what maybe have been anticipated, or certainly wasn't. Well,
I had this discussion. I'm not sure whether I'll get in trouble for this, but I did have this discussion with a non-exec director at Hornby, one of the board meetings, when it said we sold out of train sets. In fact, nearly sold out, I think, virtually all of them. And he said, well, why did you order more? Why did you order that amount? And I said, well, I could be sitting here, couldn't I? We've still got those that we've ordered still sitting on the shelf, and you'd be saying, why did you order so many? Nobody had a crystal ball. I certainly don't. My mother didn't. She wasn't a clairvoyant, so it hasn't come through to me. Although I often wondered why she knew I was nicking the biscuits and how she knew that. But you had this. You've got no yardstick. You don't know. This is totally new scale for the UK, and you had no idea. So, I had a figure in my mind, and I thought, well, that will do, and did a computation on the track pieces and all the rest of it. But even some of those sold out quicker than I thought.
Yeah.
And
the fish plates, I think, are still missing in action. There's no fish plates, and these things are just gone because that you'd have computed it on the base of your own track system, but people have found them better to work with than the Peco fish plates for the Peco track as well, because it's slightly wider, more finger friendly.
Right. Okay.
So the fish plates have just gone. They're in high demand anywhere you can find them at all. And even
the annoying thing is,
No, carry
You'd
on.
think you'd be able to pick the phone up. Sorry, you'd pick the phone up and say, "Can you send us some more fish plates? Because you are making track."
Yeah.
And they say, "Well, you know, we've okay, but we've only got enough fish plates to make the order you placed on the track. We've got to hang the tool. We've got to do this and da 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 da." And you think, well, stick them on a plane. Get the machine working. Then you're going to have these women packing them or blokes packing them or whatever, and that means they're not doing something else.
Yeah.
So
it's the balance.
Factories, certainly in this day and age, don't have people sitting around thinking, well, what can we do this week? They've got it planned for a year. Yeah. And when you ask for these things, can you just slip this in? Isn't always as easy as saying it. So it does take time. Okay. Things like fish plates, you can get a lot of fish plates in a small box, which could be airmail. Yeah. Not email, airmail.
I haven't got the Star Trek transporters quite yet.
Yeah, not quite. But I mean, that's only, but it has to be made. They have to be packed. They have to be labeled, etc. And these things unfortunately just take a bit of time. But those are the things you learn, and you think, right, we can have a buffer stock of that because we never ever run out of track. But if you've got nothing as a yardstick to say how many you're going to be selling over a period of time, so you can do your computations that way, you've got no idea. And I think that will come. That will come. Very good. But it will take a couple of years or more for them to build that sort of confidence, because you don't want to have a warehouse full of track pieces that are going to last for 10 years. Mm-hmm. You've got to be sensible with these things.
So what's your take on the involvement of other manufacturers in TT120? We mentioned that a little bit already, of some of the smaller ones doing accessories and so on. Even some crazy YouTubers have done uncoupling tools and stuck on eBay. Coal loads have gone on eBay, and these things have kept my wee 3D printer burning away through the night quite often, which has been great. Nice. I quite enjoyed doing that. But I think we've got Peco with their track system. They've got their own wagons now as well, complement the Hornby ones quite nicely. Heljan was famously in and then out again. Would someone get else on board of a bigger manufacturer, maybe not huge, but maybe Dapol, Bachmann, Acura Scale, Rapido, would that be a good thing for the scale at this point or not? Would it slice the pie too small, or would it show increasing confidence?
Well, it could go either way, but I think it would increase people's confidence.
Okay.
I would say that if I was showing off a model and saying it was TT and it was I'd done the design work, and this was the 3D printed taken from that, I probably wouldn't have stopped doing the development. Yeah. Probably would have carried on. So I think it's that would be my take on what you were saying about Heljan. Maybe they were that far advanced and they decided no. But I mean, if it had been me, I would have carried on. Mm-hmm. But to answer your question, either way, I think the more people who get involved, the better. Don't forget there is Arnold out there, which offers TT. Peco, as in Piko, in Germany. And I think I'm not sure whether it's on Peach's site. It was one of the sites where a chap had purchased one of these ice trains, Ice 3, and it thought it was brilliant. And I think that's what I like about it. Is if I want to run a bit of European, I'll run a bit of European, and it won't look out of place.
Yeah, I think that was Peachy. I think that was on Peachy's site. It did look good.
And I think so. Yeah, there will be, if you look back in 00, you look back to the Triangle days, etc. There were small companies out there, Gem, Merit, small little companies who were doing little accessories and bits and pieces, which people bought and were able to enhance their logos or their layouts, etc. I don't see, Hornby with what they've got on at the moment, be sort of wanting to do all these little ancillary bits. This is what other companies are there for, and they will do it. And they do a good job, and it enhances. Or buildings, etc. You can't have enough buildings, different buildings. I think the more the merrier. And as I say, if somebody like Acrodale or Bachmann or whatever want to put their toe in the water and do a TT loco or whatever, or some wagons, there's plenty out there to have a go at and try.
But at least these companies must have at least had a discussion by now. Are we
easy. Yeah.
If you were to put anything down, would you say you expect that in 2 years, within 2 years, would you expect another major manufacturer to be on board or not? There's your crystal ball.
I would. I think the answer to that is yes. All things being equal, I would expect within 2 years. But it has to be proven that there is a market strong enough to support another loco. I think, another manufacturer either. And I think, within, I think this time next year, you will have out there the Hornby's HST, their Duchess, I think their Class 50, the 66. You'll probably think, do you know what? There's a bit of a market there. We're running out of ideas on 00. Let's have a go. But you can take some kind of indication, which is going the other way. If you look at 009, you've got Bachmann and you've got Peco, and you've probably got smaller companies doing bits and pieces for 009. I'm struggling for any other manufacturer doing 009. Really. But again, to a degree, Engage. There are two key manufacturers there, Bachmann obviously and Dapol. But Dapol are spreading their wings more. Not sure what that says actually. But ask me in a year's time. Stronger. But I can see, that TT will get stronger. But it needs a bit more product coming through.
Well, I think folk are quite excited at this stage where they can see a lot of what's been announced is coming soon, and I think they're also encouraged that pretty much everything has come out. There have been some issues along the way, but there's been no duds, there's been no blunders, there's been pickups. I suppose. I mean, the running qualities. That was a question we have to ask you actually now. The running qualities of the smaller tankers and the brake vans are maybe not perhaps what we expected, and some suggesting this was almost designed in order to allow the couplings to function better. Would that be stretching?
No, I think not quite sure what you're referring to. I know there was some I saw something on some of the wheels not tending to bind, but I think that's more to do with tolerances. And I think that's something that will be noted, and on the next run the tolerances will be corrected. You're talking microns, aren't you? With this with TT, and it can make a bit of it, as it did with those coaches that were with the
noise on the
bogies scraping underneath. Needed a slight tweak on the tooling, and that issue went away. Actually, I do cover that off in some depth actually in the book.
I think that's the kind of thing that the wee tankers. My TT hasn't come yet. It's on order, but it hasn't come yet. I'm waiting on that. But I've got 3 of them, and they're all noticeably poorer free running than the wagons. The open wagons run beautifully, they run. They're not. It's not a problem, but I would imagine if I had a long rake, which I don't, then the '08 would begin to struggle, especially on a tighter day.
I would say that's tolerances and the tool on the chassis, obviously where the pinpoints go, just need adjusting.
Yeah.
But it would only be it would not be noticeable by the naked eye.
How close do you anticipate the book? Are you any idea of timescale of publishing your book?
No, to be honest, I haven't. Not until I get it back from the editor. I've not, to be honest, no idea. It hopefully won't be too long. If the worst comes to the worst, then I'll just publish it on my webpage.
Yeah.
I'm busily putting together a website at the moment.
Excellent.
So I say busily when I can get time to do it.
Any other projects that you're working on we don't yet know about?
Well, yeah, unfortunately, they're fairly confidential. There's something quite exciting, which will start to evolve fairly soon. I've got doing a bit of writing. A little bit of a comment I wrote appeared in this last month's Railway Modeler on their comment page. Things it's things like that. It is difficult to talk about what I'm doing without, because obviously it's all confidential. But finding I really do want to get my website sorted, because it's not only will it sort of focus on the consultancy side of life, etc., but also it'll have on it not comments, but things that I probably feel strongly about. But a few current blogs on comments, similar to what I used to do on Simon Says. I'm going to put those I'll have those on the site so people can reread, and it's quite interesting. I wasn't going to do it, but I started to read them. I think some of this is still very relevant.
Sure.
To be honest, and it's interesting to see 5, 6, 7 years later, these issues are still cropping up. And then another part of the site will be folks just airing their comments, their views, how they're getting on with their modelling side of life, sending videos, etc. Something I avoid using the word community, but somewhere where people are justifiably proud of something they've done, even if it's their first bit of modelling. Yeah. Get it on there, because it will give encouragement to other people who are not sure about their own modelling skills. I've always said, when I first started woodworking, whatever you want to call it, DIY, I couldn't knock a nail in straight. Yeah. I learned how to knock a nail in straight, and your skills evolve.
Yeah, you learn by doing. You have to. You're not suddenly going to become a great modeler, and you never do it. And even my own kids, I've used the excuse of each of the children coming to various stages of I'll build them a wee layout, and they have noticed a distinction between the first ones we did together and the ones I'm doing now, because I've learned a lot. And on the whole online forums, the YouTube how-tos, all these things have given huge confidence to someone just to have a go. And so I think that is certainly an area of the hobby that wasn't there before, because I'm in a rural area. There's no like model club here for me to go along and learn from people who've done this before. So having stuff online, that gives you access to a wealth of expertise. And I won't do it as well as these guys do it the first time around, but second or third time I might get a wee bit closer to it, and you kind of build up.
And you develop your own technique, and you have that wonderful satisfaction that you did it yourself.
Yeah.
And you have the ability, as you evolve your skills, to go back and make the changes. And I think, you know, it's not a race. Railway modelling is not a race. It's a pastime. It's a hobby. It's something you can lose yourself in, and you can put into it as much as you want to take out. You know, it is amazing. You know, I mean, I've been in this industry, and it is an industry, for a good number of years. I feel so lucky because it's such a wonderful, wonderful hobby and pastime. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And there I have lunch.
That's a hint of where you had one.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, a brief cameo by Mrs. Kohler there.
It was. Hang on a second. I've taught her well because I've been going on about turning lights off.
I'd say, well, listen, thank you very much for your time. We'll close off. I think that's given a good bit of material. I'll try to edit that down and present that. But I really appreciate the effort and the opportunity. And I think, you know, a number of times now, again, know each other, but I've enjoyed that aspect of it very much as well, Simon. So thank you.
No problem. And I'm always, if I can, always happy to answer questions. So, you know, and again, if people disagree or whatever, again, quite happy to hear about that as well. You know, it's always these are always my personal views and how I see things, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm right, as my wife tells me. You're not always right, she says. And difficult as it is, I have to agree with her.
Excellent. Thank you.